in Hispanic Gateway Asia. Now, let's get into the masculine and feminine principles. Principles has to do with the root, the beginning. Oh, that's the word I was supposed to define. I'll do that next. But principles, okay, masculine and feminine has to do with the principle of gender. The principle of gender defines or identifies the feminine and masculine. And it also is a great representation, of the principle of co-respondence, because these are energies that are responding to each other that are contained within every form. This is existence and its operations and system, right? Well, I just intuited this information just a couple of minutes ago, just to have something to refer to identify, to spiritually see through symbology and word form, how these things correlate to us and to existence, okay? Just based off of these feminine and masculine principles. These are just the names that we call it, the names we use, the words we use, the symbology we use to identify these energies, because these energies are existing irregardless of us being aware of them or not. So we know that we learn through our educational systems and things that we know to be true between the two poles, because this even shows what it looks like on a battery. We have where did I write it? The negative for the feminine, right? The negative, which is represented in black, and that's why colors are very important too, because colors contain their own energies in which they can be used, and they are used regardless if you're aware of them or not. But everything created, I'm sure, is done intentionally to serve a purpose. But negative and positive, we have these two poles. Feminine has to do with receiving, okay? Masculine is more giving, but yes, giving. It's an expression. It represents the yin and the yang, right? That's just that symbology is a representation of these energies that we should be able to identify just based off of the symbol. That's why symbols are so important, to at least have an understanding of them. It represents our intuition. I see it as it being free, because this is our creative container. It's where we are, boundless to think of anything. You know what I'm saying? You're not restricted to this actual reality. You can, just like you can picture yourself on a beach in another island, you're free to do that mentally. Or you can reminisce on a feeling, you know what I'm saying, and go down memory lane. You're doing this internally in your mental and emotional bodies. That represents the feminine aspect. Okay, there's your sense of direction. This is where you're processing information and thinking about which way you're going to go, what you're going to do, which action you're going to take before you actually express that action and make it external to you. You think and feel about it first in the feminine, and then express it in the masculine, because the masculine represents expression. That energy has to do, and I didn't put the main thing, the sun, the light, the way of seeing, the perspective, the way of movement, physically, movement, I should just say, because that could carry into many dimensions. Represents the male, okay? A more action principle, okay? But then these forms are expressed in different ways. This is about object, to being able to identify and separate and observe people, places, things. Okay, it's our way of seeing. It has to do with external things. It's a principle. And then we also go on with the feminine. These are internal things. things that we do internally that we don't see, because it also represents the unseen. Did I write that? I didn't even write that. The seen and the unseen. The aware in the masculine and the unaware in the feminine, because it's the things that we are unseen, the things that are in the dark, figuratively speaking. And then it's representing actual darkness in color and ways to identify darkness, because you can be in a state of darkness, spiritually or mentally. Or you can physically be in the dark. And I wanted to show this too, because this also is a great way to represent different states of being. Amaya drew this. Painted this with her great self. Oops. But these are different states of being. They're like existences. It's like it's usually represented in a continuous line, especially between 2 points, because it's indicating movement. But if you want to capture a movement, then you'll have an orb or have it represented in correspondence between different points, because these are also different points of correspondence. How these bodies are interacting with each other, these forms. These represents, higher knowledge, higher perspective, your intuition. Okay, we have that, our inner sense of knowing, our communication, how we think. Okay, these are different forms that we're able to move into, and this is great for alignment, because these things should be in alignment, should have a complete cycle in order for action to take place, because you want to make sure your thoughts and your mind, your thoughts and your heart are in alignment with each other, right? Before you make some type of communication. So we should be aware of these different bodies, because there are many different forms in which we build stability, a foundation, a tree. And it's up to us to find what our foundation and tree is. Because this is not necessarily something you need to believe in, right? We know we have these things. This is representing the sun, our actions, our expression, our individuality, our personality. We would want that to be in alignment with our hearts, the way we feel, the way we communicate, right? This is our rootedness, our foundation, our principles in which we build these things. And so all of these forms have a positive and feminine aspect, right? In order to be a trinity, a complete mind, body, spirit, right? The number 3. All these things correlate. And the 2 really represents all this energy and more. But this is just a way to identify a form of correspondence, because correspondence is limitless. It's its own state of being. But this is a way to identify it, its form, its container. And we can do that by observing an orb of information, a container. And then we can test these things on ourselves and decide if these things are true, are in alignment, are balanced. So, correspondence, principle of gender, masculine, feminine, are in everything. And it's good to be able to perceive these things, because you can see how you can use them for yourself, how to build for yourself, and how others are doing the same thing. And if that's in harmony, because these things should be harmony, they're balanced out. That's why it's a force pulling together to keep the container enclosed, right? Because these things have to agree with each other in order for it to be a form, agreement, where we get contracts for a form to come together. And there's many different forms. That's what I'm saying. There's many different realms of realities in which this information exists. And I just want to broaden the perspective. This is not a belief system. This is life. Okay? And depending on where you are spiritually, you may know all these things, but I want to represent in how it is pertaining to erudition, in which we should have got in school or culture or through our upbringing, and bring those realms together in order for us to build individually, and then we'll be able to translate that to our external forms, and that's healthy for everybody. Just I don't know, hopefully others can see that. I don't know, but I think so, because if you're in a healthy condition, then you're going to be giving off health, right?